Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. My name is Rob Maxwell and I'm an exercise physiologist and personal trainer. I'm the owner of Maxwell's Fitness Programs and I've been in business for the past 28 years. That's a long time building programs. Before we get into this fantastic podcast this morning, I want to thank our sponsors. Without sponsors, we cannot put on a podcast. Our great sponsor is Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They can be reached at thegildengroup.com or by telephone 386-451-2412. Again, that's the great couple Jonathan and Lynn Gilden of Gilden Group at Realty Pros. Awesome people. Please check them out for your real estate needs. All right, so let's dive into today's message. We are going to talk a little bit about the Starfish. The Starfish. Who knows the story? There's that great painting, work of art, poetry, whatever you want to call it, of the kid on the beach, and he is throwing starfish into the ocean one after another, one after another. And a person comes up to him on the beach and says, hey man, what are you wasting your time for? You can't save all these starfish. And he leans down, he picks up one, he looks at it, he looks at the guy, throws it into the ocean. He says, maybe not, but I just saved that one. I've always thought that was a great story for what I do, and maybe great for what all of us do in life. The message, of course, is that we're not going to change everybody. We're not going to have an impact on everybody we come into contact with. But even if we just have a great impact on one person out of the thousands we meet, then it was very, very worth it. A client of mine sent me a text that said, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And I'm sure he was talking about my podcast from yesterday. All this fits together. All this moves together with what I do. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. Another little background piece of information before we dive into this a little bit was a mentor of mine who was a personal trainer before me, and he is passed on after suffering an illness, and he was a great role model. He said to me, he says, you can't work harder than your clients. You can't outwork the people that are hiring you to help them. They have to be willing to meet you at least halfway with the level of effort. And basically he was saying to me that you can't fix everybody, that you can't take it personal when they have success, when they have failure. So all these things tie in, and that's what I want to talk about today. One of the big reasons why I'm doing the podcast is because I really feel like I know what I'm talking about, and I feel like I have a good message. Those two things together are great. Number one, like I said, I've a lot of education and even more importantly, a lot of experience working in the field of physical fitness. And I really don't feel like there's information out there that I don't know. And I'm not being arrogant. It's just I've studied it all. I've looked at it all. There are some things that I'm not overly great at, certain parts of the industry. But that's mostly because I haven't been too interested in it. But the point is I've looked at everything. I've studied everything. So I really feel like I know what the heck I'm talking about and pretty much can help anybody with any of their goals that are in the realm of my expertise. And secondly, as I said, I believe it's so worth it. I believe the message is so worth it. I can't state enough how much physical fitness changed my life early on as a teenager, and how it continues to work itself into every aspect of my life. And I say it on this podcast a lot, which the famous quote Kennedy said, that all forms of excellence begins with physical fitness. And if you know anything about him, and then Eisenhower just before him, they were really trying to push the physical fitness movement among the teens and youth. and it was so much more stringent than we are today with it. And since then we've basically fallen off the path pretty bad. So let's get into the podcast, the message. I look at it like the Starfish. I was speaking with Ellen the other day, and I'm like, the biggest message people need to hear is the importance of physical fitness and the importance of combating obesity and the importance of combating being overweight. Like, that's the biggest crisis we have really nationwide, almost with everything, because heart disease is the number one killer in the United States, and the number one precursor to heart disease is obesity. So, really there's not a more important crisis that we have when you think about it from a health standpoint than obesity. The problem is the people who need the message the most aren't tuning in. The people who need the message the most aren't hearing it. The people that need the message the most aren't necessarily taking it to heart what they do hear. So it's like, well, we want to make a podcast, of course, and I enjoy doing it. And if I did something totally targeted towards the obese, maybe even morbidly obese, because that's who needs it the most, I'd get no subscribers. And that's sad, because the people who are listening, and I'm so grateful for every one of you, and I'm going to flip this into a positive here in a minute when we talk about the Starfish thing, want to hear more about physical fitness and things that apply more to them, which is totally understandable. So the subscribers that I have are the ones that are really, listening, paying attention, asking questions, commenting, giving me good feedback and all that. They want to hear about other things besides obesity. They've I wouldn't say tackled that, because it's a lifetime process of maintaining our weight, but they want to work on other issues. So here's where the Starfish thing can come in. I look at it like this. So yesterday I did my podcast on the myths of recovery and rehab, and if you listen to it, and if not, I'll just briefly describe how I talked about how physical therapy is great, but oftentimes when people go to a physical therapist, they're, not being challenged to do what they really, really need to do. And I also talked about how so much of the time, people are going to get better if they listen. Well, you're going to have some people hear that and not do anything with it. And then you're going to have some people do that and go, that's absolutely true, and I need to really get stronger, and I trust this message, and so on and so on. So that's going to be the same with everything. I'm going to reach somebody that heard that, and as a matter of fact, it's absolutely a fact. And somebody, messaged me about the, getting specifics on that, like, oh, maybe I'm, wasting my time with this financially and need to move on to different things. And so there's that Starfish effect. So some people will hear it and say, oh, we just don't like that industry or whatever, which of course isn't what I said. And then some people are going to hear it, even if it's 1%, I believe it hopefully more like 10%, but, are going to hear that and go, that's so true, and I need to do something about this. So that is how I look at it in the industry. I'm going to put a lot of stuff out there on obesity, a lot of stuff out there on improving muscle mass, muscle tone, getting stronger. And a lot of people will go, yeah, I guess, and, kind of not get it, not want to do it. But there's going to be that one person that hears it, and they're going to do something with it. And as I was speaking to Ellen about this, what we want to do when we're making these podcasts, which are really trying to hit you with the information that I think you need to hear, because there's way too many social media celebrities out there that don't know what they're doing and post information and just, it's not giving the right information. We're hoping that the more we do successful podcasts, then the subscribers are listening and they're taking the information and they're passing along good information. And so they're creating their own Starfish story, and they're going to be hearing what needs to be said, and maybe they pass that on at the old water cooler at work. So we can all be disciples of good information with fitness, and we got to get the word out. That's my job, is to get it out initially and reach some people, and then I'm hoping the people it reaches, they reach other people. But I really want people to do this by only talking about the correct information. Now, being a personal trainer for as long as I have been, 28 years as I said, you can imagine the different types of clients. And oftentimes people will ask me, if I've been interviewed, newspaper or just students, or I've done book signings, whatever. They'll say to me, well, what is your favorite type of client? And I know what they're looking for, and it makes sense that they're gonna, they're gonna think you're gonna say, well, an athletic male or an athletic female, or somebody with a lot of money, whatever. They're looking for, that kind of thing. And I might surprise them with my answer, and my answer's never changed. It's none of those things really matter. What I'm looking for in a client is a person with complete trust that's going to do what I tell them to do. It's really that simple. And that could be that male athlete, or that could be that male obese person. That could be that female athlete, or that could be that female obese person. That could be that person who's rehabbing a knee or a hip, or that could be that person who just wants strong ADLs. I have never seen a correlation of one demographic that fits that personality type of what I would believe most trainers want, which is that person who's pliable, the person who's trusting, the person who's not a control freak, and the person who's going to do what you ask them to do. That's the type of client. That's where we can have, or I can have, the absolute most success. And that this is getting back to what one of my mentors told me: you can't fix everybody. And what I have control over is the message. And I tell Ellen, and I tell all my other trainers I have and have had, the same thing. We can't control the outcome. We can only control the message. And when you get a client who is willing to do exactly what you advise them to do, they are going to see results, and that's the outcome. But we can only control half the equation, and that is the message and the plan. We can't control what they're going to do with it. Hence, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. If somebody wants to lose weight, I always advise them to, I tell them, if I'm going to help you, we need to keep a food log. We need to log our food. Now it's as simple as put it into a app on a phone or a computer. And once we do that, then I'm going to look at it. I'm going to make suggestions. You're going to follow those suggestions. You're going to continue the log, and you're going to do your exercise plan. That's just my end of it. And on top of my end of it, I'm going to make sure that they're exercising properly. I'm making the correct suggestions. I'm keeping in mind that everybody's everybody's different. So there is the principle of individuality. So I can't give somebody just a cookie cutter diet plan. It's got to be something that's molded to them. All those things are in my control, and I do that when I have a willing party. It's up to them to follow it. And if they don't follow it, guess what? They're not going to get the results. And guess what? I can't take that personal. It's easier said than done, because we want everybody to succeed. But if I'm wasting my energy on that person, trying to get them to do what essentially they really don't want to do, either they don't trust to do it, or it's too much hard work, or I'm not going to take the blame for that. That's just not, I say that's the right thing to do. We all still take some blame because we're professionals and we want people to be successful. At the same time, this person is a negative energy drain. And if we're wasting our time on somebody who essentially won't take responsibility for what they need to do, then there's that starfish laying on the beach that we might miss. And there are plenty of people out there that really do want to get better, and that understand that they've hired a professional to help them, and they're going to follow everything this person tells them what to do. And I'm using mostly diet as an example because diet and food seem to be the area that we run into the biggest issues with people, because it's the hardest part. I mean, for some people, getting to the gym is hard, but for the most part, especially once they've hired a trainer, hired us, it becomes less hard. And they do tend to make their workouts. It's their homework that they just really struggle with doing. And as I said in yesterday's podcast, and I'll just repeat it briefly, if the person's struggling with it and they take ownership of it, like, I know what I need to do, I'm not willing to do it yet, but thank you, that's fine. I mean, that's maturity. That's a good relationship. That's a good professional relationship. If you tell them what to do, they're not doing it, and then say, but I'm not losing weight, and that happens unfortunately more than the former, that's not professional, that's not maturity, there's a reason why you're that way, and there's your reason right there. It's blame shifting. If you don't trust the professional that you've hired and you're paying good money to go to, whether it be $35 a half hour or $50 for 45 minutes, those are our rates, and you don't trust them, then you're not very smart. And when we interview people, we want as much buy-in with the client as they want with us, if not more. Matter of fact, we've, over the last few months, have rejected more than we've taken, because I want to really make sure it's a win-win. And I'm not just going to take any client that's got a check, a credit card, or cash. No way, Jose. I've been doing this way too long, and we're full. We're going to sit down. I'm going to tell them the expectations. I'm going to try to, read facial expressions and body language, because everybody tells you what you want to hear the first day. I mean, they just do. And, I'm sorry, but we invest our time into it too, because we write training plans. We have very limited spots in the schedule, so we can't rely on somebody face value, because oftentimes they tell you what you want to hear and they're going to follow everything, and then but start a couple workouts in. So we evaluate, and we give everybody ample opportunity to gain trust, and we have to trust that the person is willing to be molded and taught and pushed and all those things to the best of their ability. And if they went into it not trusting, that's really bad. That's just not a good decision on the person's part. I mean, there are maybe some things you spend your money on. You don't need absolute trust in somebody, but there are other things, anything that is concerning your health or your wealth, I think you better, trust that person. So, we can't fix or change any and every starfish laying on the beach, but it's always been my goal and my belief that there are plenty out there that are meeting us halfway, meaning we've got the information, we're absolutely good at what we do, and we have good clients because we really make sure that we test them first and make sure that it's a win-win, and then they're going to see the results because we're doing our part, which is the planning, the meeting there, the coaching, and they're doing their part, which is the homework and being letting go of the steering wheel, so to say. I used to have a client who used to say all the time, it's okay, you're used to being in the driver's seat in your life, but when you're here, you're going to have to slide over. You're going to have to get in the passenger seat. And if you start backseat driving, I'm going to kick you out of the car. I mean, it's really that simple. And if you get somebody I've had plenty of people who are very high up in that driver's seat that are willing to do that. So it's not a status thing, which makes somebody willing to let go of the reins. It's really not. It's not an important job. Some of my most moldable clients have been physicians, and when it comes to health, and they've been, just tell me what to do. This isn't my area. And some of my biggest pains in the asses have been people without those types of jobs. So again, just like the type of client, it's not really the type of industry or career either that, are as moldable. I think it's just who you are, and only you know who you are. And I'll wrap this up with a quick story about a great example of that. A client, he recently passed, and he was an awesome man, and I'm not going to say his name, but he was very ranked high in town, so to say, and I would argue statewide. And years and years and years ago, when I was working with him, he was very influential politically, and he was having, which it turned out later to be, a meeting with the governor of the state of Florida. And this was a long time ago. And I'm not even going to say who the governor was either, because it doesn't matter. But this is 20 years ago or so, something like that. So he was late, and he comes into the gym, and he was all disheveled, and still I think had his dress shoes on. And I said, "Hey, you're late. We got to get cooking." He says, "I know, and I'm going to tell you right now, I did the best I could to get here on time." And I looked at my secretary and I said, "You know what? You're going to have to let the governor out, because I'm supposed to be at my workout and I'm already running a little bit late." And by this point, my face dropped, and it was a true story. So he literally had the secretary let him out, meaning close the door behind him. Bye-bye. He's got to go. He left him sitting there in his office and came to the gym and apologized for being late. And I don't like to tell people that story sometimes when they're like really disrespecting my time and tell me how important they are. But I do believe that message speaks volumes. Here's somebody who's high enough to have a meeting with the governor of the state of Florida, and he respected my time and his workout enough to say, "This has gone on too long and I gotta go." So whatever your reasons you might think it is that you're running late, probably not there. But it's just a great example of somebody who's moldable isn't necessarily somebody who is unimportant. Yeah, it has nothing to do with it. As a matter of fact, a lot of times people who are in careers, where they're really highly regarded, have a great amount of self-respect for themselves, and so they treat other people the same way. So anyway, I want to reach, that starfish, and if you're it, man, that's a great thing. If you're not, nothing I can say about that. So, until next time, be max fit and be max well. And please don't forget to check out the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They're the best. GildenGroup.com or 386-451-2412.